Hi everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss how to resolve one of the most common exceptions that we get while writing the Selenium script, that is no such element exception. No such element exception is encountered in different scenarios. So I am gonna explain you each scenario now with an example and will also show you how to resolve them. So the first scenario is when the locator is incorrect. So when we are locating the element, when we are trying to locate the element which does not exist in the DOM. DOM is document object model, or the locator used to find the element is incorrect. In such cases, we encounter this no such element exception. So let us understand with an example. So let me navigate to google.com, and I wanted to read this label on this button called Google search, right? So let's do that now. I just wanted to read this text on this Google search button and display it on the console like Google search, right? So for that, let me show you how to do that. So I have already written the code for it. So you can see I have a WebDriver instance here, instantiated to Chrome driver, and navigating to Google, maximizing my window, and you can see I'm finding the element Google search, the Google but label on the Google search button, right? And then we are trying to print that value here. So let's execute this program. So if you can see by.name is what I'm using here. So if you go here, inspect this element. So you can see the attribute here, right? Name, btn, k. So this is what I'm using. I'm using the attribute name here. So let me run the program now. It has to actually fetch the text on the label, text on the button, Google search button, that is Google search, and it has to display on the console. Right, maximize the window and boom, it actually boomed, errored out, right? So see, no such element exception. It clearly says this no such element, unable to locate the element, right? CSS selector, and it also says where the error is, right? So this is because we are using incorrect locator. So if you observe, this was incorrect. If you go back to the name attribute, so it was btn uppercase k, right? So we use the smaller case k here. So it's case sensitive. So the attribute value is case sensitive and it was not able to locate the element correctly, right? So it's always a good practice to copy the locator from dev tools and have it copied onto your program instead of assuming the things are, you know, having that manually entered, right? So this is how you can actually fix the incorrect locators, right? Now let's see. So the program has to actually now, google.com URL has to be, yeah, it has to navigate to google.com and then it has to fetch the label. And now we didn't get the exception, right? So the exception has been resolved because earlier we were using the incorrect locator value, attribute value, right? So always this needs to be copied and has to be copied into your program instead of typing manually, right? So, and also we need to make sure whether the attribute locator which we are using is correct or not. Sometimes we might be, looking for the ID, but we might be writing name or vice versa or anything else, right? So you need to be make sure whenever we get a no such element exception. So we need to make sure the attribute which you are using to locate the element and also the attribute value inside it are correct or not. We need to double confirm this. That will be the first scenario. Now, coming to the second scenario. So we do get this exception when the element is not loaded completely. So what do we mean by that is, so the element exists in the DOM, but has not yet been loaded, often due to asynchronous loading might be. So because what do you mean by asynchronous loading is the content is loaded in the background without requiring a full page reload. So in such cases, we do get the no such element exception. So let's take an example. I'll navigate to youtube.com and I'll just type in some text here. I'll just type in as text type name. And after typing in text tag name, so we usually, how do we get the result is, so how we are going to automate is text tag name, and then we are going to hit this search button. You see search button here, right? So we are going to click on this. Then we get the results, right? So after getting the results, we are going to get the title of the first video on this page, right? So let's automate this scenario now. I already have code written for this. So if you see, I have WebDriver instance and navigating to youtube.com and then search box, right? So we need the search box to enter the text. So this is the search box locator and entering some text here. So it could be any text and then search button. So we are clicking on the search button. And once we click on the search button, so we get the results and we are going to try to get the title of the first video in the results, right? So if you see here, the ID, we are using ID here, video title. So I'm using video title here. This is exact, ID is correct, right? So the correct ID has been used here. Now let's execute and verify. It has to fetch the title, video title of the first video from the results. Search box, search button, right? Yeah, it does it. And we can see that, boom, it again failed. So with no such element exception. But if you observe, even the video title is correct here, right? So whatever could be the result, right? So, but if you observe, the ID is also correct here. So 1 second. Let me show you this. This search button, if you see, the ID is also correct. And also the title of the first result, whatever it could be. So we were trying Selenium, Java, tutorials, right? Whatever could be the result, but we wanted to fetch the video title of the first result. And you can see I'm using ID here, which is this one. And yeah, exactly the ID is correct. So this would not be the issue. So what is the issue then? So the first, whatever scenario we have discussed at the starting, so that's not the scenario. This is different. So what is happening here is whenever we type this text and click on this search button, so it is taking some time. If you observe on the top, it is trying to load, right? Load the results. So in the meantime, Selenium was so fast that it after clicking on search button, it's trying to locate this element, trying to fetch the video titles from the results. But the results were taking some time to load on the page. So in the meantime itself, it is trying to locate this video title, which was not present on the DOM, which was not loaded yet. So in this, that's the reason it was failing. So how do we handle this? So we need to actually use some waiting time. We need to wait after clicking on the search box, search button. We need to wait for some time. After that, we need to actually look for the title of the video, first result, right? Whatever it could be. So how do we fix it? We can use the explicit wait here. So we can use explicit wait to fix this. WebDriver wait. So you can even use you might be having the implicit wait also in your code, but that's common for all the objects across your project. But we need to use the explicit wait here so that, it will be specific to our use case, whatever we are writing here, right? So WebDriver wait, driver, and then we can wait for some time. So it could be some 10 seconds like that. And then wait dot until expected conditions until the presence of element located. We'll use this locator by dot ID. Now let's capture this into a web element. So we can use the same one which is present here. First result. So what did we do here? the page was loading, and even before the page has been loaded, we are trying to fetch the video title of the first result. So it was failing. It was clear, right? Now, what do is we are using explicit wait here. For more details on explicit wait, I have made a video on that. So you can find the video link in the description below. So we have write a extra explicit wait here. So what does this mean is it has to wait till this is found, video title is found, right? And it has to wait at least 10 seconds. So within the 10 seconds, if it is found, then it will fetch this video title and come out of the program. But at max, it will wait for 10 seconds. So 10 seconds is more than enough, I think. So if it is not sufficient, we just need to increase this duration. So you can see here, it hits, and now, yeah, we didn't get the error. Error has been, exception has been fixed, right? So the title of the first result has been displayed, right, without any exception. So this is how you need to fix the no such element exception. So first thing, you have to check incorrect, if it is incorrect locator. If it is, you are sure that you are using the right locator, then you need to see if it is taking long time, like if the page is loading, but in the meantime, you are trying to access the element using your locators, right? So in that case, you need to use the explicit locator. So there is one more thing, like let's see another scenario. Coming to the next scenario. So dynamic content. What is dynamic content? So dynamic content in the sense, the page is already there. It's not the initial load, but the page is already loaded, but dynamic content refers to web elements that load asynchronously. That is typically after the initial page load. So the page is already loaded, but making on some action, the page loads asynchronously, or we call it as lazy loading. So in that case, we wanted to locate the elements and perform some action. So in such case, we get the exception. So let's see an example on that. We call that as dynamic content. So example could be navigating to scroll. So we'll see an example on this. So this is a page. So this is some infinite scroll page. If you see here, I wanted to scroll this like this, and then find an element. So if you observe, this is a scroll page. So I don't wanted to find something on this page which is visible, right? But I wanted to scroll this and then find some text after scrolling, right? Some element after scrolling, right? This is what I wanted to perform an action. So let's do that. I have a driver, web driver instance, and I'm navigating to this URL, and then we are using JavaScript executor for scroll action. So for scrolling, I'm using JavaScript executor here. So JavaScript executor is an interface. So I'm using that to scroll, and I'm using scroll height. Scroll height. So scroll height is the actual, height is whatever the element size is, the maximum element size. That's what the scroll height is in JavaScript. Right now, what we are trying to do, we are trying to, after scrolling, after executing, I'm scrolling to scroll height, and then I'm trying to find some text. Right now, so this will be loaded only after scrolling. The page, it might be present in the backend, but whenever we scroll it, only then. So we have seen that, right? So this will not be present at the beginning itself. So if you see here, whenever you load it, whenever you scroll it, dynamically the content is loaded, right? So, and we are trying to find some text after scrolling. So let's verify it. There is a difference between this scenario and the previous one. Previous one was like at the initial load. So the page is loaded, and then the complete page is loaded, and before the page is loaded, we are trying to find the element, right? But this is something different. We are performing some action, and the content is being dynamically loaded. So this is what we call it as lazy loading, and during this process, we are trying to fetch some element. there is a slight difference. And yeah, and you can see we got the exception again, no such element exception, right? It will always say no such element, and also you'll see this is the common message, unable to locate element. So you should, so whenever you get this message, so this comes under our first scenario. We need to cross check our locator and make sure this is correct, attribute value and locator is right. So once you do that, so you need to verify if there is any issue with the loading in the sense, if we are trying to access the element even before the page is loaded, right? So this is the case again, right? So when we are scrolling, so the page is getting loaded dynamically, and before even it is getting loaded, we are trying to access the element again. So even in such cases, we have to use the external, explicit wait. Copying the code from here. Begin with the same locator here. I'm just waiting for 10 seconds after scrolling and then trying to get the text. So while trying to load the page, while trying to make some action, right? So the page might not be loaded completely. And before that, Selenium tries to access those elements. We'll try to interact with those elements and we do get this exception. Yeah, now you can see. So the issue has been fixed. We are not getting that exception. So because we are using explicit wait, so after scrolling or after performing some action, we are waiting for some time until the element is located on the DOM. So once it is identified or once it is present, identified, then we actually complete the execution of the program, right? So this is how you can actually fix the no such element exception in this scenario. Now the last scenario where we actually see this is in iframes. So the last scenario is iframes. We have seen incorrect locator, we have seen element not loaded yet, and also dynamic content. Now we will see how we get, like, when we get the exception when we are using iframes, right? So let me close this windows. Now, in order to understand this, let's navigate to one URL. So here, if you see this is a HTML iframes, and now I wanted to, this is one page, right? Now in this, I wanted to fetch this title or this element, right? Whatever text here we are seeing, I wanted to fetch this. So that's our scenario. So let's try to fetch this. So we have a driver instance and then navigate it to the URL. And then if you see, I'm trying to locate this element. So going back, right click, inspect. So it is there in the H1, right? So I'm using H1 and then trying to fetch this text. So let us see. Yeah, again, we got an exception, right? So again, no such element exception, right? So we just need to confirm whatever the locator we are using is right. But I know this is right. So now, what's the issue here is, so let's go back. So if you observe, this is not in the page, in the DOM. It's not like the same as usual, right? So if you see, this is something different. This is within the, this is called as iframe. So within the page, we do have a frame, right? So it's a inline, it's called as iframe, inline frame. So you can see here, the explanation is also there. Inline frame is used to embed another document within the current HTML document. Within the document, we have another document. This is what we call it as inline frame. And we are trying to fetch the text on this iframe. But we are not switching to this iframe. We directly trying to access this text. But this text is available inside this frame. So this is a different frame which is present inside the document. So first we need to switch to this frame, and then we need to try to find the element or get the text of this element, and then switch back to the default frame, right? So this is what we need to do to fix this issue. So how do we do that? How do we switch the frame? So we can switch the frame like this. So let me put it here. Driver dot switch to, and then frame. We can use the iframe here. Like go back, inspect the element, and try to find the iframe name. So this is the name of the iframe, right? Default.aht something, right? So that is what we used here. And then once we switch to the frame, then pretty much like we can actually use this. The same statement we can use it here after switching. And once we actually get the text out of it, then we need to switch back to the default content. Driver dot switch to, we need to go back to the default content, that is come out of the iframe to perform actions on the some other elements in that web page, right? Yeah, I think this is done. Now you can see we didn't get the error. So the windows are not getting closed because that was intentional. I just commented out the driver.quit. So just to see what's happening. So, and you can see now it has been fixed. So what happened here? So we were trying to access an element inside the frame without switching to it. Now we switched it by, switching to the particular frame. Then we are trying to get the element inside the iframe, and then we perform some action, and then we are switching back to the default content. So this is how you need to fix the no such element exception regarding the iframes. So you need to be careful when you are using iframes, right? So you need to always remember we need to switch to the particular frame where we wanted to interact with the elements, and then we need to switch back to the default content, right? So this is how you can actually fix the no such element exception. So we have seen in this video like the different scenarios how to resolve no such element exception. So the first one is was like incorrect locator. You always need to cross check your locator and also the attribute value if that is correct or not. If that is right, then you need to verify if the issue is with the page loading, right? So the page might be loading very slowly, but the Selenium script might be trying to interact with the element even before the page is loaded. So in such case, we can use the explicit wait. Dynamic content is also mostly related to the page load. So it actually dynamically loads the content. So in that case, also we need to use the explicit wait. And in iframes, we need to remember we need to switch to the iframes before interacting with the elements, right? So that's all for this video. So if you like the video, please like, subscribe, and share it. Thank you. Thanks for watching.